Hello, everyone. Welcome to Downstage. Bryan Hayden. Uh, that's the number. I report. Anyway, so we took a month off. Last time we spoke, we practically spoke off like almost close to 3 hours because we were doing like a year end, uh, like a year end review. And no, I did not. I have not shaved in between my beard just like this. So yes, I'm actually quite useful to having like a beard type of beard. Anyway,
I, however, did shave, and then
yes,
now it's growing back.
yes, sadly. Uh, but Hayden, how was your New Year's and everything?
It was good. It was relaxing. I've just been spending time, just been writing that series that we've talked about before, and just reading that weekly. But yeah, it's been pretty chill. There's been some crazy weird stuff that's been happening in the
Oh
news
yes,
since we've been off for a month. Apparently, I
yes,
guess this is what happens when we take a month off. The world just goes wacko, even
crazy.
more crazy, and like.
Like, like we were joking at the end of the episode. I was like, I'm pretty sure nothing crazy is gonna happen when we come back.
We
And
jinxed
sure
it.
enough, sure enough, we got like a lot of crazy shit over the past like first 2 weeks in terms of like entertainment news and stuff like that too. Uh, So, unfortunately, I do want to start with the fact that one of the craziest stuff, or unfortunately, one of the saddest things to start with the new year was the fact that our beloved friend Betty White unfortunately passed away right before New Year, like on the cuffs of New Year's Eve, on the cuffs of the New Year.
And on the
99,
cusp of her 100th birthday, too.
yeah, and and then a day or so later, Peter, I can't remember who. Yeah, it was Peter Bogdanovich and then Sidney Poitier and then finally Bob Saget. All passing away like in the span of like essentially a couple of days of each other. And whenever someone famous dies, people are like, "Oh, death comes in threes." I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, yeah. After like maybe the past few years, I'm just like, if there's a celebrity who dies, I'm like, okay, who's gonna be the second and who's gonna be the third one? Not to be like all dark or anything, but it's just like the kind of like process I have now is like
Mm-hmm.
if a celebrity does pass away or a famous person pass away, I'm like, okay, that was one. Who's gonna be two and who's gonna be three? Because
Mm-hmm.
after a while, it's like you just like the system actually does do that. But I think I was more heartbroken with Bob Saget passing away because I grew up with that man because
Mm-hmm.
I watched Full House when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, TGIF was like the night of great entertainment. It'd be like Full House, Family Matters, Boy Meets World,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and a few other shows probably around the same time too, especially with it being TGIF. And yeah, you know, and of course, I felt that Betty White passed away too was still sad because I was like waiting for her to pass 100 and just like I made it and then have her great success and whatnot. But finding out that she had a stroke a week or so earlier before her passing, I was like, man,
Mm-hmm.
that's like, and I've been with family members who've had bad strokes, especially in a very advanced age.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's not really good to watch, especially seeing how their health was like literally deteriorating and stuff like in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
same. Same. That's
yeah,
well, like that happened to someone in my family. I mean, they weren't like at certainly not the age of Betty White, but well, one, they didn't pass away, thank God.
yeah,
But yeah, it's just like it's just like a crazy thing to like essentially see happen. Because like when I saw this happen, I was like a kid, and I was like, what's going on? Because it was just
yeah.
so crazy. And it's that thing too, where it's like Betty White was like America's grandma, and Bob Saget was like America's dad, and then Sidney Poitier is like probably one of the most like I say influential like African American actors, because like like at that time when he was like acting in that day and age when he was like starting, it's like like man, it's like just like so many icons are losing, and I'm not familiar with Peter
Bogdanovich. Yeah, he's a very famous director. Like if you and I'm looking at his credits right now because I'm trying to remember like a lot of people have been saying The Last Picture Show, but I'm trying to remember like what. Yeah, he's like done movies like The Last Picture Show, Mask. Yeah, he's actually a lot of a prolific '70s director because a lot of his work has like stemmed from like the 1970s, and I've also known him from as an actor too because he was actually Dr. Melfi's therapist on The Sopranos. So if you ever watch The Sopranos and you see Dr. Melfi going to her therapist, that's him. Like he's playing that role, and. So I remember him more along from The Sopranos than I did more along the lines of his directing. Even though, like I've seen Mask like a few, like maybe a couple of times or maybe a few times. I don't remember either 2 or 3 times, but I know I've watched the movie in the past, and so
yeah, like I saw it once when I was younger. So when I couldn't comprehend who the director was, because I was just like flipping through TV channels trying to find something interesting, and then I stumbled onto that.
Yeah, so it's like. But if I was probably growing up in the 70s and like a 20-year-old in the 70s and watched his films and the thing, I probably would have understood him a lot more. Especially, and of course, me as a cinephile, I'm just like, oh, Bryan, you're not really a true, fan if you don't know a person's like that. Just because if I don't know the person's filmography, it doesn't mean I still don't respect them. Like I respect them too.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't have to know every single tidbit to be a fan.
And looking over his filmography, it looked like he was making a movie 1 year, like every year in the 1970s, and maybe a couple movies in the 1980s, and by the time the 90s hit, just like kind of like slow down. So he was like really putting out a lot of movies in the 1970s, and going into the 1980s as well. But yeah, like I said before, I think what really struck me the most was probably the Bob Saget thing, where it's just like you said before, if Betty White was America's grandmother, then Bob Saget was America's dad. And yeah, I think, and what was more weirder is that at my job we were actually playing holiday specials and whatnot, and my position for that day, right before we closed up on the last day, because of course I go on the last day to work. So after when we did our podcast, I came down with a very bad cough or cold, I should say. Relax. It wasn't COVID. It wasn't Omicron. It wasn't Delta. At least as far as I know, it was just a regular cold. Probably because I was working with so many parents and kids trying to get their pictures for Santa and all that stuff, and that's probably how I got it. Anyway, so and yeah. So when I did return to work, the last day they had me was essentially guard while coming into the movie theater. So all day long they were playing like holiday specials like Frosty, all that stuff. And then closer towards the mid afternoon they were playing like sitcom stuff like that too. And sure enough, they played an episode of Full House where I believe it was like them ringing the new year and stuff like that too. Since it's like it just was New Year's like a few days earlier, so we might as well just play some New Year's related episodes because they played a New Year's episode from Modern Family. They played a New Year's episode from The Middle, and with Full House as well. And I was watching it, and I'm like, and it's weird because it's like as I'm watching it, it's like I must have gotten the news like maybe later that night or a day later or something like that. I'm just like Bob Saget had passed away. I'm like, no, it was a day later because yeah, it was a day later because we all got the news on Monday. And I'm like, and here I am, just like watching like Full House, just like the day before. I'm just like his timing is amazing because he could always make everything so nice. Like, and that was the great thing about Bob Saget is that the one that you saw on TV was the clean act.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he got on stage, it's like, oh, here comes the rated R, here comes the rated R, NC-17 type of stuff, which was like raunchy.
It's like he went from America's Dad to that fun uncle who's had at least one or two.
The fun drunk uncle that wasn't really drunk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like watching that, and then
and also the fact that it's like he was like restarting too, his like his live appearances as well. Like literally that night where he had passed away, he had just done like a live show.
Yeah, and he was like so jazzed to do the show and stuff like that too, because it was like he just couldn't wait. He couldn't wait to do more shows in the future. So it's like, and it's sad to hear that because it's like there is another entertainment I know, the Ultimate Warrior, who did a great promo right after coming back into wrestling for one day, because he came back into wrestling for a Hall of Fame ceremony, right? And everybody loved Ultimate Warrior and stuff like that too. He does this impassionate speech to crowd, and then the following night he just passes away.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like a premonition of, I have to give out all this stuff to my family and friends, and so yeah, and then of course Bob Saget posts on Instagram saying that he was so happy to be in front of crowds again and stuff like that too. So it's like, and then you read that, and then you just find out that the following night he just passes away, and I'm just like, it's just very sad to read and to hear about that, and the same thing with Sidney Poitier, where it's just like, this man was like this was a prominent, pristine actor that like really demanded respect at any time you saw him. Like people really, people treat him with respect, but people always treat him as Mr. Poitier and not like, hey, Sidney, something like that. Like, like when someone treats you with a Mr. instead of like, oh, hey, Brian, it's like Mr. Davis or something like that, that people are treating you with such respect that, even though they know your first name and whatnot, they call you by Mr. or Miss or Mrs. or something like that. That like
it speaks to how respected that person is, and just the character of that person. That even when it's like, yeah, you're friends with him, but it's like you'll still treat him like, Mr. Poitier.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely, and it's definitely kind of sad too, because like the last movie I saw Mr. Poitier in was probably not as an actor, probably one of his last roles was probably the Jackal, which was like this like mid-90s run-of-the-mill action movie starring Richard Gere as an Irish terrorist or former terrorist. And again, that's like odd casting right there. Richard Gere as an Irish terrorist. And there was a thing in the 90s where it's like they were casting very odd actors as other nationalities. Like Brad Pitt was an Irish terrorist in a movie called The Devil's Own, and Lord, as he tries, you could tell he tries to do with an Irish accent, but I'm not sure how Richard Gere was able to do his Irish accent. And
it feels like casting back then was just sort of like, okay, there's the dartboard, there's some names, let's throw a dart and see what happens.
Yeah, another instance was Tommy Lee Jones in a movie called Blown Away, where he plays another Irish, like, And that was another thing. It was like in the mid '90s, if you needed someone who was like a terrorist or something like that, and you didn't want to go into a Middle Eastern terror role or
Like not an obvious stereotype.
yeah, like a Middle Eastern Irish stereotype, people always pick the IRA or Irish like type of things. And of course, I'm Irish American myself, and I've been learning all that, and I had to learn that stuff because of my film class and stuff like that too. So it's like, oh, it's like it's just very weird to see someone like Brad Pitt, Richard Gere, or someone even like Tommy Lee Jones play an Irishman and have that like very folky Irish accent. Anyway, point across, the last movie I saw, Mr. Poirier, was probably The Jackal, which again was a run-of-the-mill type of '90s action movie, and it's definitely one of those things where it's just like, oh, this was like one of his last movie roles to date, and then afterwards he just kind of like retired because one, he was like in his like 70s or close to his 70s, and it was like probably figured it'd be like time to retire because afterwards it's like when you're in your 70s and you're acting, it's like what else can you really do outside of like the mentor role or like the teacher or something like that. And
exactly, yeah.
With a pristine and esteemed, there we go, with esteemed career that Mr. Poirier had, is like what else could he really do after like as the 2000s was like rolling around, aside from maybe direct a couple of things. But the last thing and the sad thing, the last thing he actually directed was a Bill Cosby movie called Ghost Dad. So yeah, that's so if he really did want to direct something, that was like after Ghost Dad, it's like no, I probably don't want to direct anything. But yeah, it's like, and of course with Betty White, it's like I was kind of like in the resurgence of her career like 10 years ago when she was like coming like more Facebook popular and stuff like that too. And and then having people petition her to be on like SNL and stuff like that too. So yeah, it definitely was like a hit towards me because of the passings. But I think, and again, I think the one that really hit me the most was probably Bob Saget. So yeah, but long story short, yeah, the past couple of weeks, especially with deaths in entertainment, has been a weird one.
Yeah. And yeah, 2022 was basically like John Kreese looking at Johnny Lawrence and just going, "No mercy."
I know.
Pretty much.
Oh, we'll get to Cobra Kai later, but but from one depressing news to another depressing news, and we're not gonna do everything all depressing today. No.
It's just a lot of depressing stuff has just happened when we've been away, and it's like now we kind of have to just like cover it all at once, seemingly. So it's like, buckle up, everybody. We're in this together.
But I will say this: we're starting off the depressing stuff first, and then by the time we're ending this episode, you're gonna be we'll put a smile on our face. So, because we talk about stuff that we actually enjoyed, but yeah, so. Josh Whedon is in the news again, and Josh, he kind of fired himself. He kind of shot himself in the foot by doing an interview by not only maybe and unless it was like a hit piece or something like that, or if the editors decided to work around, but he basically denied any allegations about what happened on Justice League. And so,
not just Justice League, but
also like Buffy,
even the other accusations too.
Yeah, like Buffy, like his stuff on Buffy, his stuff on Angel, his stuff on Firefly. The fact that he probably murdered somebody as a kid kind of like went under the radar.
Jesus.
So, yeah. Well, he didn't like murder somebody. He okay. So I point this out because one of my friends actually had to point it out because at some point in an interview, his interview was actually talking about how as a kid, Josh was like he was with his family upstate, and the family upstate had like a pond or something like that, and he was with a family friend or something like that, and the family friend was in the pond, and after a while, Joss just decided to leave the kid just unattended, and they didn't find the kid until like a couple of weeks later, like dead in the pond.
Jesus.
And according to him, it's because of stuff like that. It's because of stuff like this. It's because I never knew how to swim. Like my parents never gave me a lesson to swim. And again, this whole thing with Joss Whedon is like one weird clusterfuck of an interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that, I say that by after reading some of that part interview, I'm going. Not only is he shooting himself in the foot with these allegations, but he's also pretty much like opening doors to other allegations that probably haven't been, touched upon, even though they were touched upon. So yeah,
it's like this. Like, dude, how many times has he done press junkets? Like, he's like, and he still doesn't seem to understand. I'm just so baffled by how this dude has managed to shoot himself in the foot in such a way where he seemingly just took a revolver and just kept going until there were no rounds left. It feels like that's how many times he shot himself in the foot in just this interview alone. Because like you're saying, it's like he just opened himself to more allegations and made them even worse. Like when I'm first reading it, like the one that immediately struck out to me, because this was newer to what I think he said before, where he was saying, oh, well, Gal Gadot's first language wasn't English, so, and I'm like, okay, so, yeah, kind of, the obvious racism there. Okay. Not sure how that is an excuse for your attitude, but okay. And then also, it's just like, when it's like, it also is like he has, like, because I've been re-looking at some of his things, like, this dude is kind of a pervert, though, I'm going to be honest. The way he films certain things, like that scene in his version of Justice League where Flash falls and his head lands on Wonder Woman's chest. That same kind of scene actually happens and I totally forgot about this until I essentially saw this clip again, where the same thing happens in Age of Ultron when the robots are attacking in the Avengers Tower. Black Widow is on the ground behind the bar, and Bruce Banner jumps over the bar to get some cover, and then his head lands on Black Widow's chest.
Which really tells you about how Joss Whedon saw Black Widow, because Black Widow is behind the bar, being the bartender and stuff like that. Instead,
it also just kind of reflects how he really does kind of see women to a degree too, because it's like he did the same exact shot in both movies. It's like, why? It's not funny. It's just weird and awkward. Like because it's clear he wanted a laugh out of it, but it's like I'm watching, especially one in Justice League, and I'm like, this is weird. Did anyone else, like, I don't know, check this before like they put it on the cut? Like, but yeah, it's like,
I mean,
but there's like
going back further than that, there was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and there was a whole subplot in season 6, I believe, either somewhere between season 5 and season 6. I think it's probably season 6, but season 6 is more like the more stranger of the. Yes, it definitely was. Season 6 was. I called season 6 like the bizarro season, where it's like a lot of the things that happened was just so bizarre. And one of the subplots was that Spike, the resident anti-hero vampire character, he wanted a Buffy to himself because he still has feelings for her and stuff like that too. And so he goes to I'm trying to remember what the character's name, but he basically goes to like this young man who basically built who's basically like an evil genius. He builds his own like robots and stuff like that too, and it's basically lifelike, So what he basically does is basically create a Buffy bot that basically looks, sounds, and has the exact measurements of essentially Buffy Summers. So, and because this was pointed out in the article, I'm like, in hindsight, that is kind of like weird to have, especially since Buffy is like, still relatively a young woman, like maybe 19 or 20, and Sarah Michelle Gellar was probably in her like late 20s, so she could probably pass, like past that, past thing. But technically speaking, when a character like that is being portrayed like that, plus is the main character of the show, even though this isn't the same character, it is kind of like very degrading to say, oh, by the way, we decided to split your character in two this season. There's you, and then there is a copy of you that is basically a sex bot for someone else. So
yeah, like that is really creepy. Like one of the few times I've seen, creating a robot character done well is actually Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because the intent wasn't to be a sex robot.
No,
that's the kind of the point right there. It's like, if your intent for a robot is to essentially just fulfill the sexual desires of a character, you've got a big problem here.
Oh, yeah.
Like, especially because there's so much potential you can do with a robot character, and if you inherently create them with this sort of like, this is their inherent purpose, one, all you're doing is revealing that, yes, you're such a pervert, apparently, that you think a sex robot is just perfect writing. That's just that's great plot right there. Like, oh my god.
And then they point out the thing that happened with Angel and how essentially Charisma Carpenter was pregnant in, I believe, season 4 or season 3, between one of those. I believe it was season 4, because season 4 again is a bizarre season where a lot of this stuff was very bizarre to happen, and her character wasn't written to be pregnant on the show, and then over the season it was like, we gotta find a way to actually include the pregnancy or keep doing the thing where it's like, the character just like stand behind some door and they don't see you don't see the belly stuff like that too, so they.
Like you find ways to get creative and try to hide it.
And then after a while, I was like, what, we'll just give it into the show and just have her as pregnant. So, but and again, according to Whedon, when he had a conversation with Charisma, I believe I didn't believe you were pregnant. I just thought you were putting on weight, or something to that effect, which is just like. Which, is one, always shit, and two, it kind of shows you how warped this guy's mind is and how he's been perceived as a nerd icon for the past 25 years.
Yeah, it's like that's what's just so weird. It's like you're saying, everyone thinks he's like an icon, that he's but it's like at the same time it's just been revealed how much of a really just kind of misogynist he is. And I don't even want to say that, because I was going to say the term closet misogynist, but it's like, no, not really. I mean, kind of, I guess. I feel like, I feel like that does kind of is the term, because I feel like he actually has tried to hide his misogyny for so long, because I think he realized how much of this icon he was becoming, that he tried to hide it, but it's like, but this is just also who he is as a person, and it's like he can't really fight who he is, I feel like. And then now with everything, it's I feel like he's just almost becoming more of who he is. It's like, really, this just kind of echoes a great line from Red Dead Redemption 2, said by the character Rainsfall to Arthur when they were talking about Dutch. The line going, it's not that we really change, it's just that we become more of who we really are.
Yeah.
So it's maybe Joss Whedon wasn't always like this. Maybe it was just something that was inside of him, and he knew how to keep it, hidden for a while. But then as time has gone on, he's become more comfortable with that, and it started to show more and more and more in the works. The sex robot, calling a pregnant woman saying a pregnant woman was just getting fat, and then those weird shots that are supposed to be comedic but aren't, of having a man and his face fall into a woman's chest.
Yeah.
When one, it's really out of place. It's a weird spot for humor, because if there is a laugh, it's literally just gonna be for maybe 2 seconds. And then, oh yeah, look at this intense action where we could all die right now. Let's maybe focus on that instead of this weird joke that doesn't actually work at all. So yeah, I feel, yeah. Ugh, Joss, man. What are you doing? Just what are you doing? Just take the L, go home, and just stop. You're literally doing nothing to actually really address any of this in a way that's actually meaningful to begin with. Because all you're trying to do is just double down and essentially try to pit the blame on others.
Yeah, and again, I had to reread the article as you're talking about this, and apparently he has some regret calling Charisma, after he I was not I was not manually. Most of my experience with her was delightful and charming. She struggled sometimes with her lines, but no one could hit a punchline harder than her. The interviewer asked her. And here comes the great gaslighting thing, where it's just the interviewer asked him if he remembered, calling her fat or anything, and I did not call her fat. He quickly replied, "Of course I didn't." And of course, the interview goes the article goes into more thing where apparently he had called other women fat, pregnant women fat. One being Rebecca X, who wrote the last 3 seasons of Buffy, and apparently she was weeks away from giving birth, and she was happy to see Joss. And the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, you're fat." Did it hurt me? Yes. Did it say, "Hey, I got a baby in here. What's your excuse?" So in many unsaid words, yes. But I think he was slim at that point. So my point is, it's a dick move, but I wouldn't call it abuse. But yeah, it's a lot of it from what I've been reading is that when he was working at Buffy, it was he was 31. He hadn't worked on a show like this before, obviously show running a show and stuff like that too. Mm-hmm. So obviously there is a lot of closeted resentment towards women and stuff like that too, that you kind of do see over time, especially in some of his writing. And again, it really does say a lot when a prominent LBGQT plus character on the show is killed just to motivate her girlfriend into essentially almost destroying the world. And this happens, of course, on Buffy. And of course, a lot of people have been, pissed off at Josh for, doing that. And it's I did it to expand the season because season 6 is a very weird season, and a Buffy, but to essentially kill off a lesbian character just to create shock value, and also to motivate one of your main characters into trying to destroy the world because the character is a witch, and and she could essentially absorb this knowledge of magical knowledge into essentially trying to destroy the world. It is a dick move because it just shows that he is there is some sort of closeted misogynistic misogyny. There we go.
Misogynistic, yeah.
Yeah, misogynistic tendencies in there that are very closeted, and and in a way, it does come out with his writing because how other other women characters would essentially be what they call stuffed in the fridge, whereas it's their whole sole purpose of being a character, if they were a female character, were either you're the girlfriend, and you're probably gonna die. So
Mm-hmm.
you probably, and it comes from a very famous shot in comics where Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern at the time, finds his girlfriend like literally stuffed in the fridge. So, and and of course, and this goes into other characters in other
Like,
shows of it as well.
like Black Widow having to be the one to calm down the angry Hulk man.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to with the Avengers stuff in a couple of seconds, but
Okay.
in Buffy. One of the main storylines for in Buffy was that Spike and Buffy have a pragmatic relationship now. It's probably now probably what we call pragmatic, a very problematic relationship.
I mean, honestly, it should still be. It should have been considered problematic back when he freaking created the sex robot.
No, but
Or, I haven't seen the show that much, so it's like I'm only going off of like. But like,
one of the big things about their relationship was that at one point Spike nearly rapes Buffy because he doesn't perceive it as being he sees it as a consensual thing, even though she's trying to stop him. And of course, this leads into essentially Spike trying to redeem himself, not only as a character, but also like redeem himself as a boyfriend and stuff like that too. And then,
like, Joss, maybe just don't have the person do that. Did you ever think of that, Joss?
yes, and of course, Angel is not a sinner as well. I mean, a saint, I should say. Angel is not a saint as well because, this is a man who was probably like maybe 300, 400 years old, creeping on a girl that was probably 15 years old at the time, 16, wherever the Buffy age was in the first season. I'm trying to remember it again. They kind of do it like year by year. So season one, yeah, probably 16, like 15, 16, around that area.
Yeah.
So, and of course, they wait like a season and a half until they finally consummate them their love for each other. And of course, Angel having sex with Buffy not only makes him lose his humanity, it also makes him become like the most monstrous evil vampire there is, called Angelus. And of course, Angelus.
Wait, hold on a second.
Okay.
Let me just, okay, so hold on. Let me just see let me see if I got this first. So this character, who is a vampire,
yeah,
after he and Buffy have sex,
yeah,
he loses his humanity and becomes a monster.
Yeah. Okay, so a little backstory.
What is wrong with you, Joss?
Okay,
what happened to you, Joss, in your years? That like.
Okay, so a little backstory with Angel and Angelus. So originally, Angel was this monster vampire called Angelus, right? And he basically had some sort of like, I believe it was a gypsy curse or some sort of curse that basically forbade him into becoming Angelus again. Because if he had found true love and he found that true love calling, and he consummated that love with that true love, an angel will be gone and Angelus will be reborn. And Angelus is like one sadistic vampire. And again, to quote the stuff in the fridge thing, one of his main things that he did in season 2 was essentially kill off the girlfriend to the main mentor, Giles. And Giles was just having a nice relationship with this girl, with this woman named Jenny Calendar. And then suddenly Angelus is reborn. The first thing that Angelus does is like literally just kill Jenny in a very gruesome way by snapping her neck and then leaving her body to Giles in a romantic way, because as Giles is walking up the steps, he has all this roses, he's following the roses, he finds Jenny's body. There's like this underlying monologue done by David Boreanaz in a very creepy way that he basically talks about what love is. And as he's like talking about what love is and all that stuff, you just see the body of like Jenny and Giles just like breaking down and all that stuff. And yeah, and then they killed Angelus, and then Angel comes back, and then it's like there's this whole argument about if Angelus does come back out, like how will they, like combat it again? And then Angelus does actually come out again in season 3 or again, I think it's probably season 3 of Angel. Because he does have a kid with Angel, but he doesn't lose his soul or anything. Apparently, the whole thing with him losing his soul is that he has to find true love, and the true love that when he consummates that marriage, consummates marriage. When he consummates that relationship with his true love, that's when he loses his humanity. Anybody else is just fair game. So yeah, that's the reason why Angel loses his humanity and Angel and Buffy and all that stuff. Just to explain it to you.
Okay.
And this is something I haven't watched in like maybe 10 years, but it still resonates with me because I grew, and this was like one of the first shows I actually watched, binge watched before there was Netflix and stuff like that too. So, so that's how it resonates me more. The same thing with Smallville, but
yeah.
the Smallville is like a whole different organ.
Yeah, that's a different thing. That's a totally different animal.
Yeah, that's a whole different animal. But yeah, Joss, especially when you're watching something like Buffy and Angel, you could just tell there was like this like animosity towards women and stuff like that too. Especially if these women are just either degraded, berated, or just killed off, just like as an afterthought sometimes.
Yeah, like it very much feels like some high school crush he had on someone rejected him in some like maybe some humiliating way if I had to make a guess. And then he took it out and has continued to take it out on these shows on the characters.
Yeah, and
it's like, geez, dude, it's like you're not gonna actually like if you're coming at a place of hate with where you're creating these characters, you're only going to do you're not gonna do well by the characters.
Oh yeah. And a lot of the stuff that has happened with Joss Whedon, it does carry over to these movies as well. The Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Justice League. These 3 big movies all have like the things that are problematic. They're like in Avengers, there's like this whole scene of Loki essentially telling I was about to say Scarlet Witch, Black Widow, that he will have Barton essentially torture her or something like that, and in a way that does feel like it is very sexual. Because again, Tom Hiddleston, he's playing it as Loki, but at the same time, if you do watch it out of context and you don't know he's Loki, it just sounds like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have my your best friend do things to you, break you apart, and then once he's done with you, I'll kill him and I'll kill you myself. Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then you go into Age of Ultron and all the stuff with Black Widow and stuff like that too, and then you find out, Joss adding the whole, she can't have any kids thing, which I don't know if that is part of the comics. If it is part of the comics, I'm pretty sure they kind of like kind of said, oh yeah, it's she could probably have kids now. It's like it's just.
I have to say that one kind of does make sense because then when we look at at her own Black Widow movie, we see all these Black Widows.
Yeah.
And then everything they've gone through. That at least does make a little bit of sense because it makes sense thinking about it now because it feels like there's context to kind of like back up and justify why that would be the case.
Yeah.
But it's like the rest of the way that she's essentially treated in the movie. It's just like you can just see like the way it's like you can still see the way Whedon like treats women characters.
Yeah, and again,
like I was saying earlier, with having the fact that it's like she has to be the one to calm down angry Hulk to go back to Bruce Banner.
Yeah, and you have friggin' Elizabeth Olsen wearing essentially like I wouldn't say Skippy outfits, but they look
like some weird kind of schoolgirl kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
Joss, what the hell? I'm like, And then,
to be fair, that's kind of the way Elizabeth Olsen's character does get treated anyway in like the rest of the Marvel movies.
Until
even she was like saying that at one point. It's like, why am I always the one wearing this stuff where it's like trying to show off my boobs and no other woman characters treated like that?
Yeah, and then it's like, yeah, you could just tell that there is like this like closet, that sort of thing too, and it kind of like culminates with Justice League, and how much of a cluster fuck that was, and not only
like the frick that you get rid of Darkseid and you basically just have Steppenwolf have an Oedipus complex.
Yeah, mother.
Like seriously, like literally the line that I will always remember. Like the line I'll always remember is when he's interrogating those people in that lighthouse or whatever the place that was, and he just goes, "Where is my mother?" It's like, oh my god, dude. Because then it's like when I see the Snyder Cut, it's like, thank God. Like that's all I'm thinking watching the Snyder Cut. I'm like, thank God. Thank God that wasn't actually the original intent of this, and this is just. Well, one, thanks, Whedon, for revealing how much of just a freaking misogynist you are, and just how much you just hate women. Apparently, Whedon. I mean, thanks for making it more and more and more apparent to us.
Yeah.
I guess. I wish that wasn't the case, but I mean, thanks. Thanks. I wish you weren't like that, but thanks for letting us know who you are.
And of course, it still doesn't stop him with just women too, and I mean, of course, it's not, like that was like one of the big problems with what I've read as with the Joss Whedon thing was that he has.
It's the one thing that's the biggest connective tissue that seems to be apparent in a lot of his stuff, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like that little bit of racism he had with like, Gal Gadot saying that, oh, well, English wasn't her first language.
Yeah.
Like, dude, how many movies has she been in where she's literally been speaking perfect English? Come on. Come on.
Like, even in the Fast and the Furious, what was it, part 4?
The
part 5?
fifth one, yeah, fifth one.
The fifth one, when she found, yeah, the fifth one, because that's when everything started going off the rails with that series. Anyway, that's a different discussion.
Actually, fifth one was good. It was like after fifth, it's like nonsense.
That's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
Series that have gone off the rails, like us. But yeah, even in that movie, she's clearly speaking. English may not be her first language, but she's speaking kind of good English.
Yeah.
And then
it's like, is it just because she has an accent then, dude? Like, come on, what is this?
And then you find out that he basically cut off a lot of Cyborg's backstory and subplot because he felt like I was about to say Ray Parker, Ray Fisher. Ray Fisher wasn't a good actor, and I'm like, first off, I understand you're a director, but if you say that no one is a good actor, then you could easily just have cut it, and you having the same feelings with Gal Gadot with her Wonder Woman. Is like you could and
also I just want to say even when he says Ray Fisher's not a good actor, that's actually, like, to be blunt, bullshit, because just watch Ray Fisher in the Snyder Cut, and we see the 9-day difference where he actually is doing a good job. In fact, a best scene-by-scene comparison to show the difference, and not just direction, but him being a good actor. In just Joss Whedon's version, when Cyborg makes the first move to use his cannon to shoot Steppenwolf, in Joss Whedon he has no motion. It just the thing casually forms and shoots. But in Snyder's version, he sees Cyborg sees his dad threatened. Same like in the Joss cut, but in Snyder's version, we see him get angry that his dad is being threatened, that he could be killed. We see him rip off those that railing that he's standing in front of, and then shouts no, and then makes that cannon, then shoots him. So it actually makes more sense. It's not just like tra la 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 shoot. It's like no,
I remember that. I don't remember that part. Then again, the Snyder Cut is like a 4-hour movie, so I'm less like it is a little hard for me to actually remember elements from that movie that isn't like
I also
kind of
remember that. I also remember that too because it's like I was watching like I watched a couple of video essays kind of comparing the two movies, and one of them did show the scene by scene comparison of that scene from like one version and the other. So yeah, but yeah, it's like, and also it's like he literally gets rid of like so much of the good arcs that the characters had. Like there was like say a little about Zack Snyder. He knew how to set up something and then pay it off in the movie.
Yeah.
Set up Flash with like the hand thing that he's like not sure about, that he's unsure about himself, but he's just kind of like helping out anyway. That like that he can't find a job and all that stuff. But then we get the payoff where he literally saves the world while he's like saying back what his dad said to him.
Well, the world and the universe, I would say.
Yeah, but in the immediate, definitely the world.
Yeah.
Because he's literally as he's running back in time, the world is rebuilding. But yeah, true. And then he cuts out, and then Joss cuts out Cyborg's arc, where he, wanted to be human again. That's all he didn't want these, to be like this. And then we see Cyborg presented that chance in Snyder's version, and then says that, no, this is who I am. I finally I am accepting who I am. Instead of just, okay, we just got to pull them apart now. Like we have that, but it makes more sense now. Instead of just casually, okay, now let's pull them apart. Because it's like, the way it seems like in Joss's version, of all you had to do was pull them apart, just have everyone bum rush the boxes.
Yeah, it definitely feels like Joss Whedon's cut, even though he had the problems of the reshoots, there's still the problems of just like cutting up not only reshoots but also just like following the narratives of those reshoots and you know what? To make a great example of this is Solo. I love I'm probably in the minority of actually loves that movie, non-ironically, and now people are like, oh, I love that the Solo movie, ironically and stuff like that too. I loved it when it came out because I thought it was a great addition to the Star Wars universe. I love the Star Wars stories. I love how they go with that. And Ron Howard had the same misfortune because Lord and Miller made the movie too comedic. And of course, Han Solo is not first off, Han Solo has comedic moments, but he's not really what you call a comedic character.
Exactly, yeah.
So what we do, so what they do is basically boil it down to a heist movie, and that was basically what they were trying to do, was essentially a heist movie in Star Wars, and
that's perfect. And that's perfect because that's those situations we'd see his character in naturally.
Of course, with Lord and Miller's thing, they had Michael K. Williams, a great actor in his own right, unfortunately passed away last year, as the main villain. And the main villain was like some sort of like legit bad guy and stuff like that too. And of course, they add in Paul Bettany as Vox or whatever the hell his character's name was called. And I honestly don't remember. I just call it, Paul, Scarred Ball. He was basically Paul Bettany just scarred. So I'm like Skull Bettany or whatever. Anyway, but to bring it back to this point, Ron Howard basically essentially had like maybe 20% of the movie, 30% of the movie, but basically a good chunk of that movie already filmed, having to finish that film in his own way while still giving off a great, not only a Ron Howardness, but also, hey, this is a Star Wars movie, so we got to do, Star Wars stuff. So compared to that, had the same problems, but at least Ron Howard still took to the source material and actually still gave it a good, good once over into saying, okay, you know what, this stuff doesn't work, but I can still keep some of the stuff. This stuff doesn't work, but I can still keep some of the stuff. Just rework everything, and there you go. Compared to Justice League, where it's just like a lot of it just felt like it was like, again, Justice League comes in a very bad time just in the DCEU, where it's just like it just should not have been made because it was 3 films in and they're already doing Justice League.
Mm-hmm. And they had only introduced 3 of the 6 characters at that point anyway.
Yeah,
like they hinted at the rest of them, but they should have had at least 2 of them should have had their own movies first, and then we get all of them.
Although I will give Jack Snyder this credit though. I love the fact that you're able to introduce characters by just giving them their own little JPEG video thing.
Yeah.
Go like, oh, we got like 15 characters to do. You know what? Let's just have like 10 of those characters as a JPEG movie file, and some characters just watching the character, just watching that character do their thing. I'm like, that's actually genius. Like that actually just saves that saves 99% of the world building, but it kind of works.
Eternals would have been a far different movie if that happened.
But yeah, compare and contrast. Solo, same problem, but at least Ron Howard did the same thing, where it's just like he actually took the source material that was already written and just reworked everything to be more of a Star Wars movie, but also more like a movie that he would do too.
Yeah.
Hayden, do you have any thoughts like that too?
I mean, I feel like everything we've said already kind of just sums it up, pretty well. I mean, Solo, I'm just neutral on that, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, well, I feel like with that kind of thing, it's also just like you're getting a director who approaches things from a totally different tone and style, so it was never going to work anyway. But then it's like, but then he just brings his own issues and problems into that movie and puts it in there. And that's that's going to happen with directors sometimes. Like, you can see a recurring theme that happens in a lot of Zack Snyder's movies, and it's not a problematic thing, so thank God for that. But then it's like, you get Joss Whedon, and it's like, okay, yeah, dude. It's like he was telling us this whole time who he was, and we never wanted to listen until it was so late.
Yeah. And on that note, I think that's a good way to end the Joss Whedon talk, because that's basically the bulk of this first. The first hour of this episode is literally, let's just shit talk on Joss Whedon, because one, he has got it coming for the past 20 years, like past 25 years, especially with Buffy, Angel, and stuff like that too. And again, Buffy, Angel, I hold it near and dear to my heart. That was one of the first 2 series that I watched, like when I first started binge watching things. And and this was like pre-Netflix, so that was like really hard to do. Although nowadays it's like, oh, it's on Amazon Prime, or it's like on Hulu or something like that too, or it's on HBO Max or Netflix or whatnot. It's like, but yeah. So as I said, dark stuff over first. Now we can talk something light. So because of coronavirus, okay, now I say it's like
so light news. So COVID.
No, COVID is still around. The Omicron thing is like still rapidly becoming an issue, but the Golden Globes actually did not do its full ceremony of people inside. It was a closed ceremony. I think no attendees were there aside from the people who were like already like won. So if they had already won, it'd be like, oh, someone won, okay, and then they give off a concession speech to whoever's there or something like that. I have no idea how it worked. All I know is it was behind closed doors. No one was there aside from like key personnel. But because of that, it did give off like history of one of the winners being Yeah, one of the winners was actually like the first transgendered actress to win. I think what was it, best actress in TV or miniseries, like one of those TV miniseries categories. It's like one of those, like one of those categories. I know it's best actress in one of those type of categories, but
Nice.
yeah, the actress was MJ Rodriguez in the show Pose, which was in its last season, I think last year. Yeah, and yeah, aside from like that and the fact it was behind closed doors, like I did not realize the Golden Globes was actually like it just like came and passed like a ship in the night, where it's like it literally just like came like it literally just passed, and and because of that and the notion of the Oscars might having their own host again, Hayden, do you think that having an award ceremony behind closed doors with just key personnel and only showing the winners after they have been announced is a good thing, or should they just do like the Oscar thing and have like a host and actually have it more condensed and everything?
Well, honestly, I think that was the good route for them to go because it's like, it is definitely safer because it's like, um, it's just the way that Omicron can spread too. It's like, it's just better to be safer. And then two, it's like, we don't really need all that fanfare that we get with award shows because let's be honest, like, who really does tune into that stuff? Like, if I'm going to be really honest, because it's like, as we know, like, the viewership on award shows just has continually gone down over the last, couple years anyway. Like, even before COVID, like, viewership was already kind of starting to go down because
Yeah,
it's one of those things where it's like, award shows are just frustrating
yeah,
because we see so many good things where it's like this should have won, but it didn't. And then why is that? Because of who is essentially doing the voting in all this.
yeah,
So they always go for what is more of the quote unquote familiar. And not to say that they're that a lot of people who do win those awards aren't good at what they do, that or that they didn't create something good. It's just a thing where it's like there is this pattern where it just feels like what's the point of watching these award shows when really we all kind of know that the thing we all know should get the win generally doesn't. And it is a great surprise when someone does actually get it and they, are the most deserving out of everyone.
yeah,
Like the
and
fact that a transgender actor slash actress actually won an award. Like
yeah.
that has to be one of the firsts that I know of anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there have been like others being nominated, for those type of things, but I think it's like like it's a rarity when I actually read that. Oh, a a member of the transgender community actually wins like an actual Golden Globe or an Oscar and stuff like that too, and it's definitely it's definitely a big thing to actually read too. But yeah, I think I'm in the same camp as you, where it's like it should be behind closed doors. It should not be like 3 hours long, 4 hours long, how many
Mm-hmm.
hours long. And a lot of it does.
Especially because they drag it out on purpose because they know that's the only way they're going to actually keep the viewership. Because a lot of the awards they announce at the beginning generally aren't the ones we're there watching, to be, totally honest.
Yeah. And of course, a lot of the reason why people still watch those type of shows is because, uh, one, Golden Globes is like the only award show that I know of that actually has people eating and drinking, like a lot of wine, Chardonnay, whatever, whatever drinks you drink that there.
And that's just be how they do them all. Like I don't know which one it was. No, I think it was the Oscars. Where it's like everyone just sits around like they're watching a movie, and it's like you're just stuck there.
Yeah, and like I remember what was it like with the Oscars, it's just like like literally at a like this boring ceremony, you have to laugh and have to wait and all that stuff. At least with the Golden Globes, you have drinks, you have meals to eat, and all that stuff. You're sitting with other people, like with a round table where you can actually have conversations, rather than just being like in a theater, stuck to against each other, and like unable to really talk to each other until like commercials, stuff like that. Here you get like
Exactly.
I get like it's a round table, and it's like, and if you want to do that, and it's like talk to someone right next to each other like that, and it's like, hey, you're like, can you believe this? Like, can you believe this?
Yeah, that's a better way to at least do it. Like, if you're gonna do award shows, at least do it like that.
Yeah,
because those things take forever.
Yeah, and of course, with the Oscars are just so unfunny at times because, it's like having people trying to laugh at like jokes that just go either, like this that goes like so like bomb so quickly, or jokes that just doesn't seem so correct to hear in terms of just like, like the delivery just wasn't like, And of course, you have hosts that just aren't like Oscar material. They just host it like they're just doing a regular talk show, and that's the thing about the Oscars too, is that
especially when one of the hosts was a talk show host, Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, and also Ellen DeGeneres. So
yeah, forgot about her.
We all do.
Yeah, as we probably should at this point, given all the stuff that went on with her and her show.
At least with Jimmy Kimmel, at least he, his style of comedy is that, he actually does make fun of a lot of this stuff, and he actually does make fun of a lot of the stuff that's happening. So, at least
like that, like when that goof up happened, and then he had to literally like run back on stage and try to salvage it.
Yeah, at least he knows the joke, and at least he's able to like, the thing about Jimmy Kimmel, he's a comedian, so he has like a comedian background, so he knows how to like work a crowd and stuff like that too. And but when you have like actors who aren't really good at presenting, or actors who aren't really good at hosting, or comedians who aren't really good at doing both, it is hard to watch, especially if you're doing a hosting gig. But some of the best hosts happen to be comedians who are like, and this brings up my next point, is that the ABC president, who is going to be broadcasting the Oscars, wants to, and this brings up the whole hosting thing, is that the ABC president wants to have a host, but he wants it to be a combination, a trio of Steve Martin Short, and Selena Gomez, and the three of them have a Netflix show, a Hulu show called Only Murderers in this building, or is it in this building? What? Or
only murderers live in this building.
Well,
yeah, it's a long title.
Yeah, it's like a very and again, that's a show about podcasting too. So that's
maybe they should hire us as hosts. I mean, if they want podcasters.
yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we cover entertainment news. Like,
just to be clear, we may go off rails. So it's like as we always do.
Oh yeah. Think of us more like if a variation of Who's Line was hosting your Oscars.
But I could easily see those three host the Oscars, because one, Martin Short and Steve Martin have already done the Oscars in the past, and especially Steve Martin, and Selena Gomez is still a great presenter in her own right, because she's still energetic, she brings a lot of energy to the thing. So, and watching Only Murders and on Hulu, the three of them do have like their energies do mash together so well. So if they are gonna do like a trio hosting and everything, you have to have someone, and if it is like a dual hosting thing, you have to have two people whose energies are mashed together so well, combined with someone who's presenting, who's able to tell jokes greatly, and also have someone who can play the straight man, just rather than just be like, sometimes just have the person just like fall right into the trick, or just have someone just like anyway. But yeah, I do think that with the Golden Globes, it should be in a more condensed, like behind closed doors type of deal. Nobody there except for essential personnel. But with the Oscars, it could be a mixture of both, where it could be like behind closed doors, but at the same time have someone host a thing that, like, just to give some variety of what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
It could be it could be literally just be like, oh, over the computer, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't have 500, 600,000 people wherever in that theater just to be like crammed into for like a 3-hour show,
Mm-hmm.
like really unable to do anything aside from just like sit down and just like relax and watch this thing, like literally watch the performance.
Yeah, like what difference does it make if they're actually there or not? Because like how many times has an actor won an award but they couldn't show up that night?
Yeah. Here, at least they get like the segue into. They also give the segue into Brad Pitt cannot be here tonight, so I'll be accepting an award for him. And then, sure enough, Brad Pitt could be called on Zoom to accept his award now. So I was like, hey guys, thanks for.
And there's so many funny moments you could have with that too.
Yeah, it's like
because it's like if an actor can't show up, and then okay, so we're gonna need someone to accept in his place. So maybe let's think about what we could do to kind of play around with that. And like you could just have some funny moment of like the actor just like doing something ridiculous on his end, and then he realizes, oh, am I on Zoom right now? Oh, hey, thanks, I'll accept that award, and then just goes back to whatever weird shenanigans they were up to.
Yeah, so it's like you could easily do that, and that again brings flavor into the Oscars. But and of course that's a problem with the Oscars as well. The same thing with the Golden Globes is that, and what you pointed out too before was that the voting committee and stuff like that, they are a tired and old voting community. Voting. Point is I'm trying to make is that
it's the same old voters who essentially are voting for what is essentially the same thing over and over again because it's the familiar.
Yeah, it's the familiarity of everything, and that's the reason why some of these jokes that you hear is like they just don't like land or just don't fall through and all that stuff. And
and really, I think its biggest problem is they can't move away from tradition and adapt to the modern times. And that really is the biggest, like, that really, I think, is the core of why these award shows generally are kind of the way they are. That is that the people involved can't move past traditions and the old school.
Yeah, and sometimes the old school is good, but it's good to embrace the new.
Yeah.
Or as Ethan Hawke's character says in the Moonlight trailer, embrace the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of Moon Knight,
oh yeah,
our last story of this podcast is Moon Knight. So I was amazed to actually watch it and go. I was like literally just like on Twitter, on the Twitter account for our show, like saying, "Oh, this was a great, great. It's gonna be a great match for us, especially for us comic fans, because one, we have the Batman we have the Batman coming out early March, and then at the end of March we have Moon Knight, and of course people are like, oh, you're only liking Moon Knight for the memes. I'm like, of course I'm liking Moon Knight for the memes. And the Moon Knight memes that has been over the past, like, say, several years have been amazing because a lot of jokes have been amounting to how crazy the character Mark Spector is, but the fact of the matter is, you have a character who is literally diagnosed with DID, and there's literally that many characters in Marvel that you know of that actually have dissociated identity disorder, like as a main character trait, and to see Oscar Isaac like slip between characters and stuff like that too looks amazing. Like, one, you have him as like this very timid, dweebish type of character, and then you see him as Moon Knight, and you just see like that switch of just going, oh man, it's like this looks amazing.
Oh yeah. And also, funny thing too with the DID thing is that a trait like that, you would actually expect to see that for the villain, not the hero as well.
Yeah. But here they are explicitly telling you that this guy has like other personalities or something like that, and and they do say that in the synopsis as well, because it's like they call him Steve Grant / Mark Spector and stuff like that too, and of course one. What really is hyping me to see Moon Knight is that it's bringing me back to the days of Dark Disney, where Disney in its past have. Okay, so when I was a kid growing up, it's a little segue. Sorry, folks. When I was a kid growing up, I have seen like very dark Disney movies that have had happen in the past. Like Tarzan was an incredibly dark movie. Hunchback of Notre Dame, incredibly dark movie. Uh, I'm trying to remember other dark movies, other dark cartoons that happened in that little area. But yeah, it's like now, especially with this being part of the MCU, and especially it being like past what is it? Hawkeye? No Way Home, or at least in the time frame of No Way Home. Like you could tell, like the Disney Plus shows are slowly building up to a more darker like take on what they were doing with the Netflix shows.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're going to be talking about the Netflix thing in a couple of seconds, because it actually does bring up a good point between streaming shows and stuff like that too. But yeah, I definitely just can't wait to watch the show weekly and just be so engrossed into watching this, because I love a good mystery, and this does look like it's going to be a good mystery to watch.
It definitely does, and it really just highlights a lot of like, well, really, it's like what you were saying too. It's like this is darkest we've seen Disney go in a while. Like because they were really playing it safe with a lot of their past like MCU projects in particular, with like and not really going as dark as maybe they could be going with it. But then now it's sort of like we're in this new generation of MCU essentially, and not just in a new phase, but really just a new generation of where they're going to go with it. And it feels like it actually feels like the right direction to go with, because it's almost in a way it's like they're growing up too.
Yeah.
And it's like this is just such great potential I'm seeing here. Like another thing that has kind of frustrated me with the MCU is their marketing.
Yeah.
Like I saw all those trailers for No Way Home, and when I predicted pretty much what was going to happen in the story for generally the most part, and then when I saw the movie, I was like, yep, I called it. And then of course the worst kept secret ever, of course. Of course, yep, that happened too. Again, I still enjoyed it, but I was annoyed that I could literally predict what it was pretty much going to happen, beat to beat for the most part. But then I watched this trailer for Moon Knight, and I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of the whole point of it too, because it's like we, the audience, should not know what's going to happen the same way our protagonist, who has no idea what's happening as well. And that is spectacular. Like this, and just that cinematography and just the way they shot it. Like I'm noticing something similar, ironically enough, with the Batman. In the way they do the trailers, because in both it doesn't look like there's this reliance on CGI.
Yeah.
Which fantastic. Like please, like stop relying so heavily on CGI. Like if you know how to do practical well, please do it. That is what I beg you for these superhero shows and movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, Moon Knight, it looks like it's going to be fantastic. March is going to be such a great month for superhero content.
Yeah, especially when you start off the month with the Batman, and then you end the month with a Batman-like character, but isn't really Batman, but it has the same aesthetic that is like Batman, which is essentially the cloaked, well, not cloaked, but like the very the Max Vigilante type of thing. But yeah,
I think actually an even better comparison is like we start off March with a good dark superhero mystery, and then we end it with a good dark superhero mystery.
Oh yeah, and which brings back to what I was trying. which brings back to what I was to say with the Netflix shows is that, supposedly, with the Moon Knight, they are like leaning into like other characters from the past Netflix shows actually appear. It is possible that the Punisher might appear, and the Punisher actually fits so well with how he is, because the Punisher is like this vigilante who goes after any criminal, and he might, and like you said before to me, previously, is that he might perceive Moon Knight as a criminal, as being someone who's just taking law into his own hands. And, what happens if Mark Spector is arrested or Steve Grant is arrested and, and he needs a lawyer? Well, I won't say who pops up, but there is.
There is a very good lawyer out there.
Yes, a very good lawyer. But yeah, and if they keep on doing this, like a tease,
and also sorry, but like that mainly made me think of like, imagine a courtroom scene where we see him as Mark or Steve, and then during we see him then switch to the other identity.
Yeah.
Imagine how insane that would be to see happen, and also it would just be like, that could be such also a great showcase of the actor having to go from like one to the other, like while we're all watching it happen.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Oscar, like, do you want to see if you could get a Golden Globe or Emmy next year? I'm like, okay, let's see how we can do this. But yeah, it definitely feels like, and this is something that we were just talking about right before we started filming, which was essentially Netflix produced shows compared to other streaming shows. Like Disney Plus shows, they have incredible budget. I'm talking about not necessarily the Marvel Plus show. I'm talking about any other Disney Plus show that there is. Like The Mandalorian, like the Book of Boba Fett, all look spectacular, especially when you're like compare this to like a Netflix show to say trying to think of a Netflix show that has like the same, like The Witcher. Like The Witcher has like the same type of aesthetic going in, where it's just like a lot of these streaming services have been putting out like quality content because they are taking care of the production value, because of like people want to watch these shows or movies and stuff like that too, and again, to go back to Moon Knight has like incredible production value for like a Disney Plus show. It's like, compare that to say like WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They look like essentially Marvel type of shows. Here, with like the same thing with Hawkeye, but here,
this looks this looks like something I would see from from the DC. If I got to be honest, like the way the cinematography is, the way they've like promoted it, and just and I mean that in a good way.
And again, like HBO Max and their like DC shows have like the same type of production value, where it's like they kind of like really like promote it into a more like great thing. And I do want to see if some of these Netflix characters are transferring or transitioning into the Disney Plus shows. I would love to see how they handle, because they have already done one great character a great service to how they were on a Disney show.
Onto the Netflix, one of the Netflix shows,
Yes, and again, to compare that to is what you said before we were filming with Cobra Kai, where Cobra Kai was a YouTube original show, and I'm not sure if YouTube original still does this. I think it still does this somewhat, maybe, I'm not sure. I mean, I think the only programming that they have for YouTube originals are like kid shows or something like that now. It might be
pretty much.
Yeah, and compare that to how Cobra Kai is now on Netflix, where it looks like night and day. Whereas like the first two seasons were on YouTube. Well, it was like a YouTube original, and now on seasons 3 and 4, they have the Netflix money where they could just like literally just like Netflix it up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it definitely feels like when there is a transfer between networks or between streaming services, there is a great more level of care between the two things, because one, uh, not only would it get into better production value or just better, just like, but yeah, better production value, maybe better, better. I'm trying to think of the other word. Better networking. I don't know. Better marketing. Better marketing. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that.
Really, just overall in general, though, from like seeing Cobra Kai on YouTube Originals, it was like it was a good concept. They had something cool going, but then it's like but then once Netflix took over, and then once they had the money to do even more, I feel like that actually allowed the creators to actually be able to take more risks than they had before. And yeah, and one of the biggest shifts I've seen in the show is the fight choreography.
Yeah.
Like watching it in the early seasons, like, yeah, okay, I mean, it is what it is. And then watching it when in season 3 and 4, and like, oh my God, just like clearly they knew how to, like, clearly they were able to hire the right people to actually make this all look so much better than it had before.
Yeah,
And just and also maybe it's also just like everyone's comfort level with doing this too, because it's like it's one thing to kind of start doing it and have to kind of adjust to it, but then once you kind of start getting in the flow of this, it then starts becoming more and more like natural.
Yeah, like a great example of that, to wrap up that, like, compare contrasting, especially what we were doing before, was with Cobra Kai. The first two seasons, like the first season had like its big finale with the big karate championship thing, and then you could tell it was like they were working with a budget, so they weren't doing that like flashy stuff. And then the past two seasons, with seasons 2 and season 3, like the season, like second season ended with a great school brawl, and I'm like, okay, it actually showed that they're doing like a lot more care into the thing. And then with season 3, they upped the ante with that school brawl into a full on house brawl that goes on for like one section until another section until another section. Yeah, and you just follow the camera, just like literally just following the camera to where it goes.
Yeah, like how a lot of that is just flowing like a one take at times.
Yeah, and like that was the same thing with season 2, where it's like they had the same thing, where it's like you just follow the camera. Like it starts off like I believe, I'm trying to remember correctly, but I believe it starts off with Stingray going off to attack some of these people, like some of the other Miyagi-Do people.
Stingray.
Yeah. Like you just follow Stingray, and then as you're following Stingray, it just goes into other people. Like there's Hawk, there's Dimitri fighting all that stuff, and then it just segues right into Tori and
Sam.
And yeah, Sam. I was about to say Amanda, but then I was like, wait a minute, that's the mother. although that's a different type of fight I would love to see. Anyway, that has been Brian's private thoughts. No, I would love this. I would love to see Amanda actually kick some ass, and again, she actually does that to a Kreese in like what was it, season 3 or season 2, where she just slaps the shit out of him. And then I'm just like, I
kind of like that she's the one person who actually isn't a karate master. So it's like we're kind of just like seeing her reaction to all this, because that's one of the most hilarious things. It's like, so are there any other karate masters we have to like worry about?
It's just like she's just like a car dealership person. So she's like, she's a businesswoman, so she knows about the business. And then there's this Daniel, just like, anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
But in between these two seasons, it is basically these 9 days. And then when you go into the third season, it's like it just starts coming into a more productive thing, especially with how season 3 ended, and then going into season 4, which I'm currently watching right now. It's like I'm like on episode 7, so I have like 7, 8, 9, 10. I got like 4 episodes left.
Mhm.
So I like, and of course, I like the fact that they brought back a character from not the first movie, the third movie, Terry Silva, and not play him as a very maniacal type of person, actually have him mellowed out. And then because of Kreese, that toxic tendency just comes right back into his life, and he goes right into his old maniacal type of way of thinking.
Yep.
And I just love how, and that's another thing I love about the show is how the characters of the past, especially in the movies, have both melded out with age, but also melded out into their own like personal philosophies and stuff like that too. Daniel is someone who follows Miyagi like to the T. Johnny is someone who is living in the shadow of the 80s, but also a shadow of his former master. Kreese is still an asshole, but you get the sensation of why he is such an asshole. And then you have Terry Silver, who comes back not only as a man of peace when you first see him, where he's just like literally just like lounging around in like sandals, and like his hair is down, and like all that stuff. He doesn't have a ponytail, and then once he goes back to fight, and then this is a great thing between Thomas Ian Griffith and Martin Cove. The two of them have a great fight. Well, obviously, not the two of them, because obviously it's like as I'm watching these two characters are fighting, I'm like, okay, that's obviously stunt double. Like that's a stunt double. Like, but the two characters have a great fight, and you just see the sense of why Kreese is such a bad influence on everyone. And I'm just like, damn. I'm just like, it's sad that I couldn't watch this show when it first premiered on YouTube, but it's still a fun watch the show because Karate Kid wasn't like one of those type of shows that I would not have seen as a full-on series, and somehow the creators have been able to make it into a very fun, energetic show. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like the only Karate Kid movie I saw was the first one, and then I just saw some clips of the other two.
Yeah.
But it does such a good job of like just bringing you into that world, into what happened in the past and what's going on in the present in a way that just flows really well.
Yeah, and
you're not lost at all the whole time during this as well.
And to pick up my and to finish the thought on this thing, where it's just like there are other streaming services that actually do pick up other shows and actually make them look more proper. Like I have yet to really watch Lucifer, but the post Fox shows that they have it on Netflix, they look more like they're obviously treating it more like very Netflixy type of thing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's one episode where Lucifer and another detective friend of his visits a nudist club or something like that.
No, oh my god, yeah,
like
so she's not a detective, she's like a forensic analyst kind of person. It was just so like, okay, this is happening.
And I'm just like, if this was aired on regular TV, it'd be like, viewer discretion is advised. But since this is on Netflix, you could just have someone walk around like bare ass naked and not worry about that happening, because this is on Netflix. This is free of type of thing. So it's like, but and of course,
and also because like when Netflix took over Lucifer, it was after the third season that was on Fox, and that season, oh my god, it dragged its ass for so long to actually finally get to the end. It's like, because they wanted to give it more episodes, because like, oh, people love Lucifer, let's give it even more episodes. And it's like, no, that's not the reason why we like Lucifer. It's not the quantity, it's the quality. And that is what Netflix was able to essentially do when they took over Lucifer. They were able to like maintain its quality.
And again, with Netflix, it also got them Netflix money and able to do, I believe, a full-on episode where they'd sing for just randomly. They just like they have episode just randomly.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, so yeah, spoilers not really. I've seen all Lucifer. I like watched it all, and Oh man, yeah. Like, there's even an episode where they get animated. Like, yeah, and like, well, it's not the full episode. It's like a part of it. But the fact they did it at all, though, is just like because it was just perfect. Like, they did such like you can tell they're having so much fun with it.
Oh yeah, like again, the same thing with different when it's between different networks or different streaming things, you could tell like when there's a different type of beast or a different type of I know I'm rambling on, but when it's a different type of network picking up a different streaming show that has like that's been on a different streaming network, you could tell. You could tell like where they have had the fun. So yeah.
Yeah, you can tell where the quality either dips or just climbs.
And like to end the thing, especially going back to Moon Knight and stuff like that too. If there are Netflix characters that are coming back onto Moon Knight for either a guest appearance or stuff like that too, I can't wait to see them. And because of that certain Netflix character appearing in Hawkeye and seeing how they have even not have missed a step, I'm just like I cannot wait to see what the if
and then same for that, and same for a certain character who showed up in No Way Home, where it's the same thing. You can tell they have not like skipped a beat at all. They've not missed a day. It's like they just went right back into who they were playing, as if they never stopped.
Yeah, it's amazing to see Japanese Spider-Man like that. Oh wait, that's a spoiler.
Oh come on! Oh come on! I think they all know about Spider Pig by now.
Yes, we all know we all know the who it is, but yeah, seeing those type of characters and seeing how transitioned from Netflix to Disney Plus, I honestly just can't wait to see more of these characters like slowly pop up. And hopefully, if they do that with Moon Knight, it'll be like familiar characters, and then it'll probably be like, and then afterwards, hopefully, maybe down the road, they could do like Agents of Shield characters, which I'll be like, I want to see Coulson. I honestly want to see Coulson in the TVA because I honestly had this theory or idea of imagine Coulson in the TVA. It's the last episode of Agents of Shield. He flies away. And then you just suddenly see, as he's flying away, a portal just opens up, and he's in the TBA office, like, where am I? And you're like, Agent Coulson, Phil Coulson, and then you find out, and then as he's walking around, he's like, Loki, and then you just see Loki and him have like some sort of moment, like, oh my god,
that would be amazing.
You have the guy who killed him, and then you have a guy who basically who in his mind, like, had already just killed this guy, and it's like. So it's like you have someone who is like maybe who is regretful of maybe killing this guy, and then you have the guy who is less like, dude, I'm just so over it. I've been dead like maybe 3 or 4 times since you killed me.
And the TVA is like, so you keep coming back. This might be a problem.
We might have a use for you, just yet. But yeah, I honestly just can't wait to see where we go with the Netflix characters, or just like streaming service in general. This becoming a lot more attentive into some of the production value. Like if a lot of these shows are becoming a lot more better in terms of production, then it just shows that these not only these productions, but also these shows have more care because of the networks or streaming networks, I should say.
And one last side note too is like, remember when Marvel pushed all of their like movies, like for instance, like Doctor Strange 2 was supposed to happen in March, but then it got pushed to May.
Yeah.
And look at what's coming in March from Marvel.
Yeah, Moon Knight. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's possible that Moon Knight might come in Multiverse Madness anyway.
Well, either that or they realize, okay, people are gonna eat this up. Like I said, I think I was saying this earlier. Like when people were seeing the trailers for the Batman here and just loving how just amazing those trailers are. And I think Disney was smart to realize, okay, yeah, people are gonna be jumping for this movie. So let's instead push our movies out a couple months. It's also May is going to be a much better time for them anyway, because we're going to be entering summer. People are going to be getting out of school. People are going to have more time to go and see the movie. for Doctor Strange 2. And then that way you can use your time in March to put out Moon Knight.
Oh yeah, and it's definitely one of those type of things where it's just like we are living in a great moment, not only in a comic book phase, but also just filmmaking phase in general, or entertainment phase in general, where we could literally have a TV show based on a existing property that is essentially continuing offering from that thing. Like right now, I'm loving Peacemaker. Like I watched the first 3 episodes of Peacemaker. It is extremely funny, but it's also extremely sad at the same time, where it's just like you just get the sensation of who this guy is. You know, he isn't like he's still an asshole, but he's you can understand why he's such an asshole.
Exactly.
And on that note, that has been the first episode back from 2022. Hayden, I hope you had a good week. I hope we have a good week ahead of us. I hope nothing else crazy happens. Yeah, just please take care. Please be safe and be well.
You too, man. And yep, same to everyone who watches this.
Mm-hmm.